Excellent. So my name is Jason Lindstrom. In just a few moments, we're going to be kicking off today's interview and conversation with Brian Scudamore. I can see a ton of people dialing in right now, which is awfully exciting. And let me just go ahead and share my screen. So the topic of today's session is attracting top talent by building a magnetic culture. I think we have some great hosts and a great speaker as well. I'm going to give everybody about another 30 seconds, and then we'll be kicking things off here.
Good stuff. Welcome, everyone.
Wonderful. And while we let people dial in, I'd love to introduce the hosts. My name is Jason Lindstrom. I'm one of the managing partners here over at Bucket List Rewards. And with me today is Jerry Grattan, the Chief People Officer at Trailblaze Partners. And we have a special new co-host, Simi, who's the Director of Squad and Culture over at Smart Suites. Simi has over 10 years experience helping build senior management teams and high performance cultures. So we're really excited to have you with us here today, Simi.
Welcome aboard, Simi.
Thanks for having me today.
Excellent. And for an agenda, we're going to be just briefly sharing our mission here over at the Culture Builders Bootcamp. We'll spend the vast majority of time on the conversation between the panel and Brian. Then I'd highly encourage everybody, all the people dialing in, to ask questions. I'm sure all of us are experts at Zoom at this point, but there's a little question option down at the bottom of your screen where you can just enter any question you have. What we're going to do is we're going to be answering those questions at the end of the session, but please feel free, as anything interesting comes up, just to type in your questions as we go. And we do have 3 special bonuses at the end. We got some really great new content and ideas for you. I would also love to start off with just a really short poll question. Give me a moment here.
Awesome. Love the polls.
So this is a very appropriate poll question given the nature of today's session.
And the poll is...
Here we go. So simply, do you have a magnetic culture? I'd love to hear from the attendees here. I see a bunch of people putting in their answers. We'll give it about another 10 seconds or so.
That's
here.
Right. Magnetic? What's magnetic?
We'll be getting into it. Awesome. I'm going to end the poll, and I'm just going to go ahead and share the results. So it looks like a big chunk of you could use help building a magnetic culture. Some of you are interested in learning a bit more about that. We'll certainly be spending time on this.
That's a good thing, Jason.
Yeah, absolutely. Cool. Moving right along, just to reshare, the whole point of the Culture Builders Bootcamp is we genuinely are on a mission to connect people leaders and build the best cultures possible. And as I mentioned last time, my best learning has always happened when I connect with great senior people and I get to ask my questions and hear their knowledge and experiences. And that's what today's session is all about. It's about storytelling. It's about asking great questions and then sharing all that knowledge with everybody who's dialed in today.
Awesome. Can't wait.
I'm awfully excited. We're going to be talking a lot about O2E. We're going to be chatting with Brian Scudamore in just 1 second. We're also going to be asking some very relevant questions, things like how do you build a magnetic culture? We're going to be talking about how do you get noticed in a very crowded employment field. And we're going to be hearing from some great, we're going to be talking about some great topics. Of note, correct me if I'm wrong, Brian/Jerry, this is just a small cohort from the O2E team. I believe this is the Tough Mudder.
Right.
You may recognize some of today's speakers in the photo. I believe this is Brian down here, and we have Jerry over here with the war paint on.
Yeah, I was getting my game face on for the day.
Literally.
Yeah, literally.
But I think this is just an awesome illustration. I've had a chance to attend some huddles over at O2E, and it's just an amazing culture. And with that, why don't we kick off today's conversation?
Right on. So today, it's my pleasure. I'm really excited to talk to today's culture builder, and he's someone that I've clearly worked with in the past. I've learned a lot about culture building from this gentleman. He started, for those that don't know the story, he started this business back in 1989 to help him pay his way through college. And he soon realized that culture was the key, especially because the business that he decided to start was a junk hauling company. And if he was going to attract some great people and make some noise in the media, he knew that he had to be a little surprising and different. And that's what we see today. I think a lot of the O2E and the 1-800-GOT-JUNK story is about being new, surprising, and different. So it's my pleasure to welcome to the conversation today a man who I've introduced several times over the years, but Brian, welcome to the Culture Builders Bootcamp. Hello, Brian.
There we go. That's the word of 2020. Sorry, I was on mute. There we go.
I thought for sure you were punking me right off the bat with, I'm sorry, my audio is not working, Jerry.
When I'm punking you, you'll know it.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. And you're doing it right now. So I'd like to kick off the questions. Welcome, Brian. We will have some fun today. So you're known out particularly in the last several years, you've become really known as a culture builder, as a CEO culture builder. And so for those that are wondering, okay, what does that look like? What does a CEO culture builder do around the office? Why don't you just kind of take us through, a day in the life of Brian, and what do you do every day to kind of carry the culture?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think that first and foremost, it's living the culture each and every day. I've never described it as a magnetic culture. I like what you guys are using there in terms of words, but it got me thinking, as a founder, you are always a magnet, and that magnet can get bigger and bigger and bigger, or it can shrink and, fall apart and die. And so as a leader, you've got to live your values, your why, what you do each and every day. And so even when you show my photo there from Instagram, from LinkedIn with the banana, I love helping people live the dream of business ownership. I love having people within the company who don't want to be entrepreneurs or entrepreneurs that want to help support and grow entrepreneurs. And so either one of those things requires me to make sure that I'm a bigger magnet, attracting more people to my cause of everything I love to do. And then you find other people who are magnets, right? And, I look at all the great work Simi did with us and Jerry. I mean, you know that our company wouldn't be half of what it is today culturally if it wasn't for you or for both of you, right? So you find the right people, you treat them right, and the magnet starts to pull stronger.
That's awfully kind, Brian, and I wasn't fishing for anything like that. But a lot of CEOs are invisible in the company to frontline workers and to sort of the rank and file workers. What do you do that's different, that makes sure that you are visible as the person who's living the culture every day? I'm thinking maybe I'm priming you with a little huddle talk, maybe.
Yeah. So, if I think of, we all hear the business term leadership, which gets used so much. And I don't think that it always gets used in the correct sense. But the way I like to explain leadership is, if you've got followers, if you've got people that go, I feel pulled in by your magnet and want to be a part of what you're building something bigger and better together, then that's important. So I think, here's my ADD. I totally lost the question.
It was like, how do people see you day to day living the culture?
Yeah, so showing up. And so I think it's picking the right times to be a leader and be out front so that you've got followers. So let me give, nobody loves to talk about the pandemic, but let me give you some pandemic examples just because it's timely and relevant.
Yeah, absolutely.
When March hit and then April and the world was just falling apart real quick and everyone was fearful, we, like many others, furloughed a bunch of people. We furloughed and laid off. And I think there was 80 some odd plus people. It was a lot of people, and we were nervous and scared. But the one thing I thought was important was for me to reach out to every single person and call them, not an email, and just say, I'm sorry. I know this is tough. I know we're all going through uncertain times, but let's stay in touch. Let's see how we can help each other. And people told me that the conversation meant a lot. And I heard a lot of that through the grapevine, but it was just, you can say you care or you can show you care. We had, like most companies, you get a case of COVID, and you can leave that employee and let them go quarantine and get better, or you can choose to at least reach out as the CEO and reach out as other people in the team, which I did and we did, just to say, how you doing? Are you scared? Are you okay? Can we help? And so being a leader culturally, I think, to your question, it's making the right decisions of when you get out front, but also knowing when you pull away. So let's talk about Huddle, our 7-minute daily stand-up. Each and every day, and it's actually, Jerry, you might be surprised, and Simi too, it is better now virtually than it was in person, which is a strange thing. But the way I throw it out there is, you'd get a couple hundred people plus showing up. Someone's on stage. Let's say Simi's on stage presenting, a couple of years ago, and you've got everyone else. You're just looking at their backs. The only face you can really see is Simi. And it's a different leader each and every day, learning how to be a better leader and leading with energy and taking questions from the Huddle audience. But on Zoom, all you see is faces. And then you get the people that would always be quiet in Huddle, who 365 days a year, not a word out of them. They're there, they're engaged, but they're introverts. They're a little shyer. Now with Zoom in the chat, they light it up. And we've gone to a level of producing Zoom a little bit more, and it's awesome. Like, I don't miss it for the world, except today. This went over top of Huddle, so thanks, Jerry. But
sorry about that.
How you show up as a leader, and then how you let others lead. I think I've led one Huddle since the pandemic started, and that might have even been one too much because everyone's doing such a great job.
Yeah, that's great. Great examples. Awesome. And I think part of it is, you're saying that, you let others lead, but you're there at Huddle. And I know that's something that you've done since 2003 when they started, is you're in attendance at Huddle. It's not something that you occasionally attend. It's something that you always attend. I'm gonna send it over to Simi, our co-host, to maybe take this conversation towards sort of recognition and how you get your name out there. Because, early days, that wasn't easy, I'm sure.
Yeah, thanks, Jerry. O2E brands, 1-800 Good Junk, have received a number of awards over the years for being recognized as a great place to work. Everything from being on the Great Place to Work list to BC's top employer to most admired cultures. Maybe talk us through some of the positive impacts that being on these lists has had on the culture of a growing organization.
Yeah, I think being on the lists is always a fun, sort of proud accomplishment. Maybe I'll take you back to 2005 when we were on BC Businesses, Jerry remembers, Best Workplace. And what was cool about it is it was our first year applying, and it was top 25 in BC, and we went right to #1. And we were shocked. I mean, we're like, what is going on here? And it was a moment of pride. But then we saw that other people started coming to us saying, how'd you get to be #1? What can we learn from you? And it took a lot of time away from our own business, where people wanted to spend time asking myself, Cameron, Jerry questions. So what we did is we said, how can we have junction tours? Let's bring people in. Let's leverage that time and start to spread the word of what we feel we did well, but always ask those people questions so we can find out how to improve. So I think being on those awards is a great thing, but you can't rest on your laurels. You've got to you got to still be humble, and you still got to recognize, okay, just because we're #1, we're nowhere near perfect. And part of it was we did get lucky, and we've been on other awards. I mean, we've been on Great Places to Work many times, and Canada's Most Admired Cultures. There's all sorts of them. I think it's, as a company, my recommendation is try and get on them. But if you don't get on, understand why. Ask your people, say, why didn't we make the list? Beyond the survey sort of nonsense of, any of the politics or anything, just ask your people straight up, like, why didn't we make it? What would allow us to make it? And then take that learning and get better. No culture is perfect. And we all look at, things like the Fortune lists. You know what? Don't tell me that the #1 company on there doesn't have some toxic elements of their culture. Like, it's never perfect, but it's one measure. The real part is looking within and saying, as a leader, how can we truly be better and better together?
And you know, 1-800-GOT-JONK and OT Brands have a number of great programs, and I know this because I was there for 4 years. Which one would you say you're the most proud of that often gets recognized by these awards?
Yeah, I love the 101 life goals list. I love that. I mean, this is bucket list stuff to its core, right? I love that we inspire others within our company to come up with goals, up to 101 things that they want to get done in their life that they could feel proud of and enjoy and celebrate and share with others. And so even during the pandemic, again, this is where no one loves to talk about it, but one of the highlights for me was we went and did the Easter Seals rappel down actually our old office tower, the Guinness Tower on Hastings. Yeah. And I was terrified. I've done it before, but it scared the crap out of me. But what I loved about it is we had 10 people who I said, I'll bring 9 people with me, but you have to be scared of heights. You have to have one of your 101 life goals is to sort of attack that fear head on. And we were going down, and I had people like James Alish, who said his moment of sheer terror was we were going down together side by side, more than 6 feet apart with masks. And he looks over in the building beside him and sees his reflection and just goes, holy crap, Robin. He was dressed up as Batman. I was dressed up as Robin. And he was just like, what is going on? But the sense that we had when we got to the bottom, the 10 of us celebrating that we just achieved a life goal together, it's those things that make our workplace incredibly great. It isn't just about our let's hit 1 billion and let's sign 100 new franchise partners and all the things we want to do with Shack Shine or Wow One Day Painting. It's how do we come together as a team and say, here's what we want to cheerlead each other through personally.
Yeah. No, thank you for sharing. And 101 life goals, also magnetic force is that it creates opportunities for people to learn about one another's goals and bringing people that would never have connected on something together, which is awesome from a culture perspective.
Yeah, you know, what's interesting, the Tough Mudder, you know, you all saw that picture there, and it was 17 people the first year that we did this. And the next year we said, okay, we'll pay half the entrance fee, I think it was, for anyone that wants to commit up to 100 people. We want a team of 100. And we had a sign-up sheet at the junction, and people started pressuring each other through peer pressure to join and do something that they were scared of. And we had 100 people do it. And I remember Gurmukh, I was running alongside him. He was in our IT department. And we come to this one of, I don't know, 22 obstacles or something. And you had to jump off a diving board into an icy pit. And he didn't do it. And I tried to talk him into it. He couldn't do it. He goes, I can't swim. And so I'm like, wow, that's crazy. Have you ever wanted to learn to swim? He goes, hell yeah, I hate the fact that I can't swim. So we said, you find 10 lessons to learn to swim. We felt that's what it might take. So we said, we'll pay the first 3. You pay the other 7. And the guy is now a pretty good swimmer. And so to take something that's kind of emotional like that, where you're like, that guy was terrified, grown adult, can't swim, but now has overcome a fear, feels pretty good to have a 3-lesson part of that.
That's awesome.
It's amazing.
That seems like, Jason, like all the talk about goal setting and goal getting sounds like a good segue over to have you join the conversation.
Yeah, absolutely. And I was kind of curious to learn a little bit more. Like, you've already shared a bunch of experiences about what makes O2E such a magnetic culture. I'd love to hear about how it's maybe changed over the years from the early days to today.
That's a great question. I think that I learned this I met Howard Schultz, the creator of Starbucks, years ago. And I was at his office with a bunch of other entrepreneurs through the entrepreneur organization. And one of the questions I got to ask him was just how culture has changed for him over the years. And this resonated with me, that he said we had, at the time, this is 15 years ago, 5 major regions in the United States and Canada. And he said the culture of each one of them is very, very different. They all fit our core values. So for us, it's 1-800-GOT-JONK, O2E Brands, it's passion, integrity, professionalism, and empathy. You have to fit those core values, but at the regional level in these 5 big Starbucks regions, was you have to let the leader lead and make it a bit of their own. He said, you can go into any one of those offices in any one of those regions, or any Starbucks store in any region, and you can tell the culture is different. Doesn't mean it's better, doesn't mean it's worse. It's just different. And I think that's part of leadership, is define your magnet and then say, like, what are these offshoots of the magnets going to be? And so for O2E, what's changed is the further I've gotten away, the bigger the company's grown, the further I've gotten away from people that I'll never meet who are in the business. I mean, I'm excited about the growth, but I'm saddened that there's people whose names I'll never even hear, let alone meet or know. And so that's a challenge. So that's why things like, Jerry knows this, but I think I got talked into writing a book, WTF, Willing to Fail, as a way to storytell and get that in the hands of others. We were able to get all our truck teams out in the field, having a book, reading the book, connecting with not just the founder, but the founding stories that we've all been a part of shaping, so that as the company gets bigger, you can still have a tight connection.
That's awesome. That's a great experience share. Thanks, Brian. And maybe kind of as a follow-up or a nice transition, how does the culture maybe differ for frontline workers, the people out in the trucks, compared to people in the regional offices in Vancouver or Toronto, for example? And how do you continue to build a magnetic culture when it is people out in the field like that?
Yeah, I mean, I love analogies, and I can just think of when when a river starts flowing and it starts building, coming down a mountain, and all these tributaries, and they come together, and then you got this big delta at the end. That big delta is a company's culture that when you take any sort of survey anywhere in the company, that's really what it's like. How do you get all these unique perspectives and people in different roles, truck team members, franchise partners, Shack Shine, 1-800-GOT-JUNK, it doesn't matter. You bring them on board with vision. You bring them on board with a fit, with values. So we give them our painted picture and we say, this is what the future looks like. Do you feel compelled to be a part of it? And the values, do they fit? When they don't fit, or we've discovered rather that they don't fit, you got to get those people out of your business. So it's really the power of bringing everybody together and saying, every time we hire someone, every time we recruit a franchise partner, let's be really careful to get that person right. Because you recruited Jerry into the organization, Jerry's going to recruit Simmy's, and Simmy's going to recruit others, and it just all works. So at the truck team level, you get the magic happens out in the field just as much as it does anywhere else. Rob Watson, who's one of our franchise partners in the Valley, yesterday I was out doing a little social media PR thing, and a truck came by with 2 truck team members, and I was blown away. I'm like, we call them Toms. I'm like, you are perfect Toms. You're a role model. You're unbelievable. One guy told me a story of how he'd been with the company for 7 years. One guy told me a story about how he was with the company for a few years. Then Rob needed help during COVID, and they brought this other guy back again, and he's back. And they're back because they enjoy the culture, they eat it up, and they just go, this is fun stuff. So fit is incredibly important, and never, ever compromising on that fit.
So awesome.
Awesome. Thanks, Brian. Simi, I'm going to throw it back over to you in terms of Brian kind of opened the door on culture fit. And I know that's a big topic these days, but maybe I'll throw it over to you to ask another question on that front. I think you're on mute, Simi.
Sorry, now I did it.
Yeah. Welcome to Zoom.
We all know O2E Brands has this incredibly impressive interview process to make sure that you're getting in people that are the right culture fit. Maybe talk about recruiting for the right culture fit while making sure you're striving to practice diversity and inclusion in the workplace.
Yeah, good question. So I have always believed in inclusion. If I look at myself as a little kid, yes, white male, but I had some feelings of exclusion as a kid. I wore braces, I had big buck teeth. I wasn't the most athletic guy, and so I wasn't really ever picked for teams and stuff like that. And I felt sort of teased and excluded, and I would sort of tease back. And I think over years of growing up, you start to realize how important it is to want to be wanted. And so I've always wanted an organization with O2E Brands that is open to anybody. I mean, If you are a person that has passions and you're interested and interesting, like, yeah, come on board. We do what we call the beer and barbecue test. Does somebody pass the barbecue or the beer test? Would you have a beer or a coffee with this person and go, yeah, like they are awesome, interesting people. We got lots of shared passions. The barbecue test is how would they feel at a company picnic or a company barbecue? Would they just fit in? We're not looking for people to be just like us. I think Jerry and I leading a lot of the culture at times, people are like, all you guys want is extroverts. Well, I'm an extrovert, but I'm more of an introvert, believe it or not. And I like kind of sometimes just getting away from things and taking a break and being introspective. We don't want people that are just like us. We want great diversity of people, opinions, thoughts and ideas. And so, yes, during the pandemic, I think it's highlighted even more so, and it's given permission to a lot more people to have an open discussion and have some courage to do so on inclusion and diversity. And we're having the conversation more than ever. We actually hired a woman, Manpreet, to be a diversity consultant to come in and help us figure out how do we get this right. And nobody can do it perfectly, but it's interesting. I had a conversation, so a little story. I told you about how we had furloughed some people, and one person I furloughed, Andy Wu, and I don't think he'd mind me using his name because it was pretty incredible feedback. Is Andy said to me, he goes, Brian, one piece of feedback as you're furloughing me and telling me I'm no longer here and maybe I'll come back, but I'm hoping I can share an honest opinion. I said, of course. He said, if you look at the walls at the junction, our head office with all these people everywhere, it doesn't feel like family to everyone. You say that there's no place like home and you want people to feel at home here, but unless you're white or unless you're mostly male, like there's just this, you look at the walls and you kind of go, it doesn't feel like home to everybody. And that hit me like a ton of bricks. And I was like, wow, I never saw it that way. Just, I was clearly blind to it and how powerful. We have great diversity throughout our entire organization. Let's get more and let's highlight those stories and put those people on the walls so that everybody can feel like this is my home.
Yeah. As a lot of organizations are, some organizations have great D&I practices, some are figuring it out, some immediately action something. To the organizations that are still determining what to do, what advice would you have for them?
I think if we were behind closed doors, having an HR people meeting in our office years ago, Simi, Jerry, and myself, I think people would hear if they were a fly on the wall that we believe in doing the right thing and we care for people and we believe in D&I at our core. But now I think what's more important is you got to be more intentional about it. You got to surface the conversations in your company, in your place of work to say, let's chat. Let's discuss this. Let's figure out how to get this right. And there's no horizon where you go, yeah, check the box, we got it. It's a constant journey of let's really work to have people feel included. I've had conversations with people, there's one fellow in our organization that's openly gay who said years ago, came up to me at one of our parties and said, you know what, this is the first company I've felt at home in where I feel accepted, that I've ever been a part of. And I said, that's important. We want everybody, no matter what sort of background they have, we want them to go, yes, this is home. And it takes a lot of work, but my point, long-winded answer here is just to be intentional with how you bring it up in the company.
Yeah. No, it's great. Thank you. Awesome. I'm excited to see what O2 Brands comes up with the partnership of a D&I consultant.
Yeah, and one thing I'll layer on too, there's a fellow, Andre Norman. So when Black Lives Matter movement was cranking up again, we said, can we bring some of the conversation to our company? So I reached out to a Black friend of mine, Andre Norman, who I'd met 10 years ago, who was in prison for 14 years, who was just a total badass, who turned his life around and started really helping youth who were underprivileged and so on. And we did an interview and unfiltered just with the company and just said, like, let's talk about this. And it was really interesting to hear his perspective. And he said to me, Brian, we're not trying to end racism. there will always be racism. We are trying to make people feel more included, making people be able to speak up. This was his thought and opinion, but I just thought the fact that he's able to say that comment to our entire company and just say, your goal, Brian, needs to be getting better each and every day, and that your people want to constantly get better. So having the conversation was what he highlighted as the absolute most important thing.
Awesome, thank you. I know we could talk about D&I all day, but I know.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think, thanks, Brian, and no worries on the long-winded answer. That's what we're hoping that this conversation is about, and it's such an important part. I don't think we can talk about a magnetic culture today without addressing and talking about and introducing D&I and belonging. The way I like to think about belonging comes first, but introducing that into the conversation. I'd like to sort of stay on the theme of attracting people to the organization and going through and making the decision if they're the right person for the organization, and for them to be making that decision as well. Is this the right organization for me? And I know, early days used to get really involved in that. I heard when I left O2E that, we had this reputation of having an extremely long recruitment process. And, I think looking back, we were unapologetic about that. But what do you think? What have you learned over the years about, making the decision of who to hire, sort of your slow to hire philosophy, and and how does that contribute to making sure that you've got a magnetic culture at O2E?
Yeah, I think it's about preserving the culture. So slow to hire, quick to fire. Now, quick to fire doesn't mean just be ruthless and go, this isn't working out, see you later. That would be for an episode of The Apprentice. But this is one where you sit there and you go, how do you take somebody and say, is this right for both of us? Are you still the right person? So Cameron Harold, who was our COO from 2 million to 106 million, he tells the story about how his best friend fired him. That was me. And I did. But I could have done better in that situation. I could have sat down with Cameron at an earlier stage and just said, is this working for both of us? Can we both take this as two ADD, fire ready aim types to the next level, and engage him more in a conversation versus maybe blindsiding him? We had a lot of conversations over the years, but it could have been more upfront. Now, thankfully, we're still friends. It was his 55th birthday yesterday, and I dropped by his house to give him a bottle of wine, wearing a mask, being all safe. But it was, he would say it was the right decision in the end. There was some pain working through it, but I think it's sitting down with people. My ideal is that you sit down with someone and you start having the conversation as soon as you think they might no longer be a fit, and find out if they see the same thing. Now, we've also had people, as you know, Jerry, who've left the company. You left on your own sort of free will and came back. I mean, I think that's an awesome culture. If people can leave and come back and leave and come back, and it's like, why not just be open about this and be honest? And yeah,
that's great. Thanks, Brian. Thanks for bringing that up too. The boomerang tendencies that I had. It's wonderful. Jason, I know we probably got some questions, but I think there's still some time for you to continue the conversation a little bit.
Absolutely.
Q&A.
Of note, we did extend today's session to 45 minutes based upon feedback from the last time we did this. But I'd love to ask kind of a question. You do a really good job of being kind of loud and proud on social media. And I was wondering how this acts to both attract the right type of candidates and potentially repel the wrong type of people.
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, I think, again, how do you show up? What's your leadership? What are your values? And let's just echo them constantly. I think that every time that you can lead, whether it's on social media, whether it's in person, whether it's at huddle, what you say matters. Now, you don't have to always get it right. I mean, I've made plenty of mistakes. I'll make plenty more, but it's just really showing up and saying, here's who we are. And like a magnet, it will attract the right people. You want to be careful what you put out there, but make sure that it's authentic. I feel like I don't have to try to be authentic. I think some people go, okay, how can I be more me? Like, no, just be you. Don't think about it. And if you say something controversial and something that upsets someone, listen to what they have to say back, learn from it, engage in the conversation. So social media for me, along with other things we do, it's about just attracting people to our story and the belief, and we say it all the time, I've probably said it several times on this webinar, is the whole bigger and better together. Like, what drives me more than anything is building awesomeness with great people. I don't want to do it alone. I couldn't do it alone for starters, but I wouldn't want to. So.
Excellent. Totally get that. Do we have time for some more? Do you want to keep going here?
You know what? Maybe what we'll do is I'm going to quickly open it up and answer a couple of the incoming questions that have come in.
You ready for this, Brian?
I'm ready. I see them right here in front of me.
Excellent.
I'll let you guys pick.
So yeah, here we go. So Jennifer, thanks for this question. Jennifer had asked, she would love to hear more examples of successful programs that engage employees over at O2E. And also she thought the 101 Life Goals was fantastic.
Yeah, I mean, it's little things. So some things would just be sort of casual programs, but during this Zoom world and lack of being able to be physically together, and our office, is open for business, but most people are working remotely, it's coffee talks. So we're having people actually schedule, and there's a bit of a program in place to ensure that people are connecting live over Zoom to have a conversation. And, you grab a coffee, and hopefully it's a coffee, not a beer during work time, but it's sitting there and having a chat. First Round Friday is a program that we kept alive through Huddle, or through Zoom. And we started doing these virtual first rounds. So it was people showing up and bringing a drink on a Friday at 4:00, and there'd be 50 people on screen and just sitting and chatting from your back deck, your living room, whatever it was. So it's just finding the things that work, especially in the old world, and then bringing them to the new world, and trying to give people compelling reasons to show up. So my youngest son, who's 8, Hugo, said to me during the pandemic, he's like, "Mom says you need a haircut." I said, "Okay." He goes, "Can I cut your hair?" And I said, "Sure." And I said, "How would you cut it if you could cut it?" He said, "I'd give you a mohawk." And so we did one of our First Round Fridays with me getting a mohawk from Hugo. The line of the event was him going, "Oops, oh, you don't need that," kind of. But just take your business seriously, not yourself. Have fun. And for Jennifer, what other programs have we done? Jerry, what else have we done that you remember that made an impact on people?
Thanks for throwing it back, Brian. I mean, I think that investing in leaders and emerging leaders is something that I think started early and continues today, but defining the leadership way for O2E, and then showing people that you invest in them and you see them as emerging leaders in the organization. I believe that's a program that adds to the magnetism of O2E. Maybe we'll throw it to Simi. Simi, what were your favorite programs in the day?
Yeah, I mean, this necessarily isn't a program, but something that I think people don't realize has a massive impact is every wall at OT Brands has something crazy on it. It has a quote, and then you'll see a giant cat walking through San Francisco. You can't undervalue the impact that has on people and their mood and what sort of tone that sets when they come in for the day. It is everywhere in this amazing way. And so I would say just like the actual physical environment that's been created for the team there is impressive, along with the investment in learning and development. I would say one really good program that O2E has is their goal set and review program, which is another word for one-on-ones. I think no organization has done a better job that I've seen in how intentional those one-on-one meetings are with manager to employee, and the impact it has on both achieving performance and business objectives and investing in an individual's development and growth.
Yeah, and Sammy, thank you for the pointing out the visuals on the walls, but the reason behind that is the storytelling, right? If you think of a company and where you've started and where you've gone to and all the stories that have happened along the way that are an opportunity to reinforce values and learning and mistakes, whatever it might be, get it up on the walls. You know, people would walk by all the time and say to anyone in the company, like, what does that mean? What's that story about? And it's a great place to get the conversation going.
Yeah, I still get asked about the potato. Let's leave that one hanging and let's go to another question.
Awesome. Yeah, thank you. And those are some great answers. So next question, how do you keep fit from becoming just about personal preference for what the hiring manager just likes, which includes things like natural and unconscious biases versus what really is a good fit for the organization? So how do you, I guess, counteract the biases of a hiring manager versus like trying to hire for the values of the organization?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think that it's first of all defining what fit means, which a lot of it really starts with values: passion, integrity, professionalism, and empathy. If someone doesn't have passion, but they've got the rest of the three, it just doesn't work, right? So it's figuring out how do we find people that fit our values, and then it's validating the other things we're looking for and putting it out to the beer and barbecue test with many people. We'll check in. I mean, again, Simi and Jerry would have remembered this from the day where you're checking in. You're like, so what do you think of that person? Did they fit? Why not? And you discuss it. And the hiring manager is one opinion, not saying we make decisions by consensus, but it really is people weighing in and listening to the feedback and going, okay, you might be saving me some grief here by hiring the wrong fit if I don't hear your feedback.
Outstanding.
Thanks,
yeah. Thank you so much.
What do you think?
Yeah, we're going to move to wrap now. I'm just going to do a couple last slides and then we'll adjourn here.
Hold on. Thank you very much, Simi. Brian, we're going to just do a couple of slides here and then we'll close.
So just like last time, Jerry and Reese over on our side created a great takeaway. It's attracting top talent by building a magnetic culture. And again, just like last time, we're going to email this to all attendees. And then also we had a couple of offers, again, kind of similar to last time. The first being, if you want to learn how some of the best companies in the world are recognizing and rewarding their employees, what we're doing is we're offering kind of a takeaway of case studies and best practices. This is not a demo, but if you guys are interested in participating, I'm going to pop up a poll in 1 second here. Give me a second.
There it is.
So yeah, I'll just give you guys a few seconds. And again, it's more of a PDF takeaway for you guys to learn how to, reward and recognize staff.
Awesome. The good news while you're deciding on that, the top 5 takeaways that we'll be emailing out. What is a great relief is that many of the points that Brian addressed today are in the takeaways. So thanks a lot for that, Brian. And I know that was not prepped ahead of time, but I knew that you'd talk about the things that I also believe are really important and that we believe are really important here at Culture Builders.
You also know that I don't prep.
Yeah, exactly. Anything more than if you can get 5 or 10 minutes with Brian ahead of something, then that's a blessing. What we'd like to offer from Trailblaze Partners is 10 free sends of our culture type assessment, and then a free 1-hour consultation to go over the results. The culture type assessment is a survey that we've created that basically will help you understand how people in your organization are experiencing your culture today, but also how they believe they should be experiencing your culture or how the culture should be experienced at some point in the future. So Jason will bring up the poll. If you're interested in that, we'd be happy to reach out to you and get you set up with 10 free sends of our culture type assessment.
Awesome. And while we're letting those results come in, I do want to comment. I've had a chance as an outsider to get a tour of Junction. to meet with Jerry and Brian and other people from Brian's leadership team. And O2E is an amazing culture. Some of my best takeaways in terms of like the daily huddle, being able to attend that, see the energy in the room, watching how you guys bring your values alive is amazing. Learning how you do the GS&R, the beer and barbecue front. There's so many amazing elements. So Brian, it's been an honor having you come on out today and share your stories and experiences. It's always a pleasure. I'm just going to go ahead and end the poll there, and I can see a bunch of people have answered. So with that, we can move to wrap.
Yeah.
Any other sort of final questions or comments from the team?
Oh, I'd just really like to thank Brian for spending a better part of an hour with us this morning, and Simi, who's taken some of what she's learned over the years, partly at O2E and other companies, but is doing great things at Smart Suites as well and building a magnetic culture. So I'd like to thank both of you for participating today, and keep going out there and building great cultures, because that's what this is all about. Let's make work better for everyone.
Awesome.
Thanks very much.
Awesome,
Thank
everybody.
you to everybody. Thanks for all the questions, Simi and Jerry, Jason. Great. Lots of fun, and best of luck to all your attendees.
Awesome. Thanks so much, sir. Have a good one, guys.
Thank you.
Have a wonderful day, everybody. Take care. Till
Take
next
care.
time.
See you next week on the Culture Builders.